whatever you're looking to do, the first step is just that small step, committing. I'm gonna spend 1 hour a day working toward becoming that entrepreneur, even if you have no idea what that is going to be. You set aside that 1 hour and say, I'm going to spend between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night figuring out what I'm going to do. And maybe for the first week, you literally just sit there for an hour a night and do nothing. But eventually, something will start to happen and that little snowball will start to roll. And by the time you're done, it will be a big old boulder.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of I Fired Myself. My name is Scott Armstrong, and I'm super excited to be back here with you. This is a fantastic episode with Brett Pike from classicallearner.com. Friend of mine, just a huge inspiration. He is really walking the walk when it comes to not only leading his own inspiring entrepreneurial journey, but teaching entrepreneur skills to the next generation and instilling that mindset from a young age. And I'm just, you guys are going to love this episode. So if you want to learn more about how to become an entrepreneur, we have a school community called How to Become an Entrepreneur. There's a link for it in the episode description below. Come join it. We've got a whole entrepreneur roadmap series about how you can safely pivot away from a 9-to-5 job into entrepreneurship, building out a sales module right now, and all kinds of cool stuff coming for you. So go click the link below and join. You get a 7-day free trial, and I hope to see you there. So until then, enjoy the show. All right, everybody. So super stoked to be here. My friend Brett Pike, Classical Learner on all the socials, classicallearner.com. Been a huge inspiration for me in my journey, and ever since I met him, his message resonated with me. And I think we first met at a festival in 2022. I think, right? Wasn't it 2020? Yeah, it would have been 2022 because I was already in Tennessee. And this was like right after my entrepreneurial journey had begun. And I kind of Mr. Magoo'd my way into entrepreneurship and started a business without even really meaning to. I was like thinking of it as like a side hustle while I was applying for jobs in a new city. And it took on a life of its own. And after a few weeks of doing it, I'm like, oh, did I just start my own business? And so I kind of just went with it. But I still didn't even have the mindset around it. And it was at this festival. I'd only been, doing the handyman thing for about 6 months when I first met you and heard your presentation and all the stuff that you are doing. And I was like, okay, I need some more of this in my life. And so obviously gave your channel a follow. And I just want to encourage everybody, Classical Learner, go give him a follow because he's doing the deal, man. And just putting your money where your mouth is and really building something awesome. So anyway, Brett, welcome to the show, man.
I hope you don't mind. My dog just busted into the room like the Kool-Aid man.
Hi.
And I hope this chewing in the background isn't too annoying. Wesley, drop that this instant. Come here. And there's my son. The whole crew just comes in at once.
That's good. Hey, no, this is a family show. It's a family endeavor. My dog, where's she? She's laying around here somewhere, but she just likes to lay. She just likes to lay and observe. But, yeah, man. So I guess so. The format of the show is really talking about people's journeys from the 9-to-5 into entrepreneurship. But you're just an expert on entrepreneurship in general and teaching these skills and teaching these skills to the next generation. And I guess let's just start with a big picture overview. Tell us about Classical Learner and your offer and what services you provide for people.
Yeah, it's funny because you led with your own journey and how you kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship. And I think people would be surprised how often entrepreneurs share that same story. And a lot of times people who aren't entrepreneurs see the mountain that you'd have to climb and they think, oh, how did this guy get it together? How did he figure it out? But for most people, it's figuring it out on the fly and doing it. And for me, I was working my 9-to-5 job and I, earned a good living doing that, but I started writing children's books, and I did that when my son was born. And there were certain things that I wanted him to know about the world that I didn't think the school system could teach him. I said, well, how can I do that? I'll write some books. And I wrote some children's books, and I had a little bit of a social media presence at the time. And my wife told me, Brett, you've written these books. I think I had 5 out at the time. And, people bought them a little bit, but you can only sell as many books as you get exposure for. And she was like, yeah, you should go onto TikTok. And I told her, I was like, yeah, I would do that, but I'm not a 13-year-old girl. And, per usual, she was correct. So I went on to TikTok, and by my second video, I had 100,000 views. And I realized that it was a very good idea. And I just kind of went with it from there. And before you know it, I had a whole thing going on with the books, and that was doing really well, which was a real game changer for me. And that half a year later, I just decided, you know what, we're just going to go for it. And I started offering homeschool classes. And that was just a fantastic decision. At first, it was one live class I was offering once a week. And I was able to get customers because I was well known for my books, and just kind of took off. And now we're an entire company, and we can talk more about that. And that ding was actually someone just signing up for my company. I'll put that notification. That's someone just did a monthly subscription, but the company really took off, and now we are, in my opinion, the most based and red-pilled educational company in the world. And I stand by that claim and take a lot of pride in it. And we have just grown every year. And so for anyone out there who's a little bit worried, say, I don't know where to get started, I would say, just get started a little bit. You'll see where it goes.
Exactly, man. And that could not possibly be more true. Stuff that I talk about, like, I started my own course offering basically a school community called How to Become an Entrepreneur. And so this show is kind of I guess in a way, like a lead magnet, like helping people get interest. But I feel like this show is delivering on that specific chunk of the puzzle where, all these entrepreneur, like the Alex Hormozis and all these guys out there, they're like telling like $1 million business how to get to a $10 million business, right? That sort of stuff. But it's like there's a big opportunity there for showing people, or at least giving people encouragement around the mindset of that initial start. Like, how do you even start? It's like I drive down the road and I see all these businesses, and it's like in my mind, I'm like, every single one of those businesses started off with an idea. Somebody was just like, hey, I'm going to start a pizzeria, or I'm going to start a tax service or something, right? It all started with an idea. But to me, there was just this cavernous gap between how do you go from that idea to actually putting it in action. So that's really what I want to focus on with this show and with the community. And so with all of this stuff, it's just a matter of just starting. And I'm just starting out with a lot of this stuff. It's like I've been in this sphere for a long time doing podcasting and stuff, but it's like I feel like in a lot of ways I'm just starting over in a lot of ways. So hearing that from you is just like super inspiring, how you started off with just a weekly class. So I'm like, here we go. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, I can go back even further. I remember, I don't know what year it was. Maybe it was around 2018, but I had done everything the system tells you to do at that point. And I had gone to college. I actually, I did really well. I graduated my master's program with a 4.0 GPA. I won the award for the #1 student in the program, got out of college, got a job. I was making a lot of money. I got married. I bought a home in one of the most affluent counties in the United States of America on Long Island. And everything I had done was, what I was told was the American dream. And I remember looking at my wife one day and saying, man, I sure don't feel like I've made it here. I really feel like a slave. I feel like a hamster on a wheel. And at that time, I started looking around. I remember a friend had told me, he was like, yeah, years earlier, he had told me, you should read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It'll change your perspective. And I didn't think any of it at the time, but a few years go by and you're a hamster on that wheel. I said, you know what? I'm going to start reading books on money and entrepreneurship. And I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it really did alter my perspective in a lot of ways. And I didn't know exactly what it would be at the time, but I remember I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down the words, retire 40. And I put it on the fridge with a magnet. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to figure out something and we're going to retire at 40. Now I look back and laugh because I love what I do so much. I will literally work until I die because that's the funny thing when you start doing what you love. So I didn't know what that would be at first, and I tried a few different things, and At one point I was really passionate about, I was like, all right, well, I'm really passionate about exposing the pharmaceutical industry. And that was in 2019, and I wrote a book. And it was the first book I ever wrote, and it wasn't like my children's book. It was like hundreds of pages and incredibly well sourced and documented. And I wrote this book, which was basically a public relations manual of how to combat the messaging of big pharma. And that was before what happened in 2020. I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah.
And it was actually ready to publish right at that time. It had the best name. I named it PHUCK, Fuck Big Pharma. Mm-hmm. And that was ready to publish in 2020. And I was going to publish it, and just with everything going on, and my wife was scared, and she didn't want me to publish it. And I said, don't worry about it. And I spiked the book, and that was a year of work, and that was fine. And but I learned from that. And what I did, the way I wrote the book, was I set aside 1 hour a night. So I would work my day job, and then whatever time it was, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I'd have it set aside. And no matter what, I had to work on that for 1 hour. And even if that meant I was just sitting there staring at a blank page, well, that would be 1 hour that I needed to stare at that blank page to get to where, ultimately I was going to go. Because it's going to take X number of hours, so you have to just put them in. And the funny thing is, when you start committing an hour a night, you start getting into that routine. And some nights, nothing happens, but other nights, you get into that flow state. And when you do, 1 hour turns to 2, to 3, to 5, to 7, and you look up, it's 4 in the morning, and you're still working on this project. And then before you know it, you start to string nights together like that. And whether it's writing a book, whether it's writing your business plan, whatever you're looking to do, the first step is just that small step, committing. I'm going to spend 1 hour a day working toward becoming that entrepreneur, even if you have no idea what that is going to be. You set aside that 1 hour and say, I'm going to spend between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night figuring out what I'm going to do. And maybe for the first week, you literally just sit there for an hour a night and do nothing. But eventually, something will start to happen, and that little snowball will start to roll. And by the time you're done, it will be a big old boulder. I don't know if that's a perfect analogy, but it really is. That's entrepreneurship. It's the Wild West. It's trial and error, and you just jump into it and you get momentum, and before you know it, you'll look back one day like Scott and say, I don't know, I just kind of stumbled into this.
Exactly. And so it's been a lot of trial and error, and there's been lots of iterations of it too, as I'm sure that's, you just described. And, so it's like, I'm not the guy that's going to teach you how to scale to $100 million or a $10 million business, but I have a lot of insight into those first few steps into how to make the transition. And like what you're describing, like one of the things I teach is really being in that state where you're still in a job and you're still trying to workshop what your offer is, or even developing what your niche or even a problem is that you're trying to solve. Once you're still formulating that intention, I like to be like, okay, you can honestly, even at this point, be like, I am an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. Like for me, the biggest part of it has been the mindset aspect of reprogramming our brains away from paycheck mentality, away from, just the 9-to-5 grind, and shifting over into an entrepreneurial mindset. Just reframing like what it is in the beginning is so important. Just be like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I am employed. Like I have a job, but that job is just my venture capital for starting my business. I'm not even an employee. I'm an entrepreneur, and this job is funding my business. Like these are my venture capital people. You know what I mean? So it's like the mindset is just such a huge piece of it. And, I think you're probably one of the best people in the world to talk about that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the mindset. And, it's funny when I teach my students, they adapt the mindset of an entrepreneur so quickly because they haven't had a lifetime of conditioning. But it's when you talk to adults that there's a lot more friction, a lot more resistance. There's something in their mind where through their conditioning, they just have a hard time getting over that hump. But once they do, you know, you never go back. And one of the things I teach with my students, and I think is a good place to start with adults, is people have this framework in their mind that being an entrepreneur has to cost a lot of money. And that becomes a big roadblock. You know, I would love to start this company, but I don't have $100,000 and I can't go to the bank and take out $250,000. But that is not true. You don't need that to start a business. You really don't need any money. And one of the things I start my students with, and I do this because they're young and I want them to get experience. My ultimate goal when I teach entrepreneurship from a young age is to help them get experience early on, because kind of like you said, once you start doing it, you just see it, like a whole nother world opens up. So some of the strategies, or one of the strategies that I teach, is low cost to no cost startup. So there are a ton of different businesses that you can start at low cost to no cost. We could talk about my own journey, right? Where my first book, Cubs to Bears books, The Good Bears Always Tell the Truth. I wrote that book in 12 hours. I wrote it in one night. I've since sold over 10,000 copies, probably a lot more than that. And I don't have illustration skills, but I could have illustrated it myself. Or today, forget about it. Today, you could AI it. Back then, I couldn't do that. But I paid, I think, $850 to get the illustrations done. And that was the only cost for getting that asset published. And as I said earlier, before you know it, then I was on TikTok, and now I've sold tens of thousands of copies of that book. And I've published 10 children's books now, and they've all done very well. And none of those books, none of those assets were something that cost me a lot of money. Even when I got started with just one class that I offered, right? Well, it didn't, all I needed was the internet and a Zoom subscription. So yeah, there's a little bit of money, but people have that anyway. So those are just low cost to no cost startups. Another example, something more concrete, you can go and buy a used lawnmower and just start knocking on your neighbor's doors and say, hey, I can cut your grass. If you live in an area like I do, where taking your garbage down to the street is a hike. I mean, I take my garbage down to the street. I'm slightly worried about getting mauled by a bear because I live in a forest.
Yeah.
So different lifestyle, but right. But people will pay for that. So if I really wanted to, if that was my business ambition, I would literally start handing out flyers, knocking on doors and say, I will take your garbage down every week for $10 a week. And before you know it, you know, you have 100 customers, 100 times 10, that's $1,000 a week, times 4, $4,000 a month, times 12, you have a $48,000 business and you're taking garbage cans down a driveway once a month. So there are so many different things that people could do. They just lack the creativity. They have a barrier in their mind. And in a lot of cases, they just lack the courage. So it's getting people over that mental hump, that mental barrier, and making them realize that there are a million different businesses that you could start at low cost to no cost. And that really makes the barrier to entry a lot more manageable. And if it doesn't work out, who cares? You didn't spend any money. You learned a little bit. You readjust and you try either that in a different way or you try something else. But it doesn't hurt at all. And it's how you build and ultimately get to where you want to be.
Exactly. And then that's just the biggest thing. I mean, that literally a business is solving problems for people. So, you know, like our, you know, mutual friend Richard Grove says, you know, my first real entrepreneur mentor, he says, like, you know, sales or business is really all about, you know, people have problems that they don't want, or they have, how does he say it? Dang it. Well, it's like they have a problem that they don't want, or they need a solution that they don't know how to solve it, right? People will pay you to solve their problem, remove their pain, or do something that they don't have the skills or know how to do. And so really that's just what a business is finding what that is that you have the solution for and then offering that to the market. And then that's really it. And so, you know, there's a million different things. I was talking about on another show, on somebody else's show earlier, where it's like at the grocery store, this grocery store I go to, like every single one of the shopping carts has this bunk wheel, at least one. It's just like every single time. And I'm just like, I am going to start a shopping cart wheel fixing business, right? And then I'm just like, and I could just scale that to solve every single shopping cart issue across the country. You could probably become a billionaire doing that. But I looked it up here locally in Nashville, and there's already like 4 shopping cart repair companies. And I was like, if I really wanted to, I could come in and compete, and I could be the best out of all of them, right? But it just goes to show that there were 4 people out there that saw that problem, identified it, and started a whole business around it. And that's the exciting thing about this whole entrepreneur thing is like there's millions of those problems out there. And even if there are people out there solving it, you might be the one that can solve it better, more efficiently, cheaper, make the customer experience better in some way, shape, or form. And so in our day-to-day lives, just once your mind opens up to this entrepreneurial realm, then these kind of problems present themselves. And honestly, you could be in your 9-to-5 job. I just, right before you, I had another interview with a gal, Ashley, friend of mine, local here in Nashville. Her story's so cool because she was working as a recruiter for a company and started building her runway to exit. And on her exit meeting, she pitched her employer, like her giving her 2-week notice in that meeting, pitched her employer on her new services and made them a client. in her meeting that she was giving her 2 weeks notice, she made her boss, who had just refused her a raise, made them a client. And I was like, that is so gangster right there. And that is like what we get to do as entrepreneurs and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And like you nailed it, that if you provide services for people, if you solve their problems, you're willing to do something that they don't want to do, they will happily pay you to do the thing that either they can't do or the thing that they just don't want to do, because we all make decisions with our money about what we want to spend our time on. And ultimately, if you can solve someone's problem and give them their time back, they'll happily say, whatever the price is, and you get your time back. I have a 14-year-old student who currently has 10 employees. And yeah, crazy, right? And
love it.
She started her business by knocking on neighbors' doors and saying that I walk dogs. So you have a job, you need your dog walked during the day, I'm your girl. And that blew up. And now she doesn't walk dogs anymore. She tells me she didn't like doing that. She wanted to advance past that. So now she manages the business, and 10 of her friends walk dogs for her, and she runs the business. So that's a 14-year-old girl, and it just shows that, one, you don't need money to get started with anything and to make money. And if you could figure out what people's pain points are, what their problems are, and offer a good solution, people are happy to pay. And we all inherently know that because we all do that. We all pay people for things that we don't want to do or things that we need. And all we have to do is get on the other side of that equation.
Exactly. Well, I want to hear more a little bit about your story, about your maybe like your exit from 9 to 5, but I want to tell you a little anecdote that you'll probably get a kick out of. So back to the idea of the mindset, where it's like, we are so like it sounds like you went through the whole master's program, right? Your pipeline into the corporate life or the working world. For me, that was the same situation, where that was really the only thing that was offered to me when I was growing up, because I went to public school. Not only that, but my mom worked at my high school. Okay. So my mom worked at my high school. Now, it was funny because her job, she was a counselor. She was a career counselor at the high school. So her job was to take the students and help them determine what career they wanted. Never a conversation about what business do you want to start. It was always, what career do you want, and how are you going to get into the best school to ensure that you get into that career? And so that was the only option that was presented to me. Okay, and not to mention the fact that, like, right, my mom was at my high school, so I'm in the cafeteria trying to be all cool and stuff, and then mom walks by, and I'm like, Mom, get the fuck out of here. Like, damn it. You know what I mean? So there was all that trauma. But then, of course, like the idea that my only option was go get a job, be a good little worker. So I had a lot of, and then of course, that's what I did. Is I didn't really do good in college, and I just started working shortly after not doing too good in college. And then that's just my whole adult life. And so, relearning these things at like in my late 30s, how to start a business, how to run a CRM, customer relation management system, like how to even get clients, how to run like a lead generation campaigns, like all this stuff is never anything that was presented to me outside of having to go find this information for myself. But like, okay, so you were working in a job, you said you were doing well. To me, that says a lot right there, because you achieved the American dream. You got to the point where everybody wants to go. You had a successful career. You had the degrees and the job and the house and everything, but there was still a level of dissatisfaction there. So when you were in your job, I don't know if you want to tell like what type of job you're doing, but like just in general, more so like, when did you reach that point when you realized that this was not going to sustain you long term, and you were already starting to formulate the idea of like some sort of exit plan? What did that look like?
Yeah, well, I was working for a early intervention company in New York State, and I was doing very well with that. And I was able to, like I said, I got married and got a mortgage. That's what they tell you to do. And that's really when it dawned on me. Because I thought I was doing pretty well. You get a job, making decent money, and you feel great about it. You could afford a mortgage, right? You qualify. And up until that point, I didn't know. But once you get that house, now you're in the real world, so to speak. You're in it. And what I realized was that... Wesley, come here. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good, dude.
What I realized was that the majority of my money was going to the bank every week. And there was no getting ahead, and there was tremendous pressure. So, work became something that really felt like shackles, where it's like, man, I have to perform. I have to do a good job. Otherwise, you got all these bills to pay. So that became a real stress point for me. And I said to my wife, I was like, I feel like a slave. And I knew that I wanted to change that. And that started with education, which comes full circle to what I do now, right? Because I run the homeschool company, I run the education company, and a lot of people know us for the more based in red pill stuff that I do, that I'm very historically literate, and I make a lot of videos about that on social media. But the more powerful side of what I do is that I'm teaching young people to be entrepreneurs. And we're not just in theory, like they're actually doing it. I hosted a 4-week entrepreneurial seminar for our students this semester, and our students sold items on Facebook Marketplace, and it was 4 classes over 4 weeks. We had a student make a sale of $500. We had a student make a sale of $250. We had another student make a sale of $200, and a ton of other sales as well for our other students. So it's getting them that experience, developing that mindset so that they know there's a different path. And, it's funny you brought up the education system and the public school system. Even with your mom being the career counselor, that entire system is nothing more and nothing less than a pipeline to the university system.
Yep.
They want to get you at 18 years old into a college so that you qualify for loans, so that you take out the student loans, you start your life in unforgivable debt before you've ever been taught what compound interest is, or how interest works, how debt works, or about bankruptcy law or anything like that. And you go to the university system, and it's the same thing, where that's just funneling you in to the 9 to 5. And the 9 to 5 gets a bad rap. The truth is there are tons of great 9 to 5 jobs, but the way the system is, it kind of funnels you into things where this is what you do, and people get trapped, and then they have the mortgage, and they feel like how I felt on the hamster wheel. And I'm sure a lot of people out there know exactly what I'm talking about and what that feels like. And all I would say is kind of like Scott said, kind of like my journey is, find something you're passionate about, that you're good at, start it as a side hustle, commit an hour a day, and you'd be amazed how quickly you start earning some revenue. Even if it's, wow, I earned $100 here. Well, that $100 feels like $10 million. You're like, wow, I offered this service in the world, and here I am holding $100 in my hand. You take it from there, and you do great with it. And that's really all it takes.
Exactly. And so
You too. Come on.
Yeah. So I'm curious though. So like, when did you start saying I'm an entrepreneur? Were you still employed or what? Like, I'm curious because you were grinding, you were doing the book. So when did you did you set out to be an entrepreneur? Like, when did you first start thinking of yourself as such?
Yeah, well, right around that time where I put the Retire 40 on the fridge, I didn't know what exactly I would do. I was making some YouTube videos at the time. I tried to sell some shirts. I pre-purchased. I didn't know about drop shipping yet. I pre-purchased 200 shirts, and I sold one. And I sold one of 200 shirts. And to this day, I say that was a massive success because
Yes.
one, I learned what not to do, and two, I learned that I had the ability to make a sale. And if I could sell one shirt, I could sell 10 million. I just had to get better at what I was doing. So I did that. I started another website, which was writeyoursales.com, where I was offering to basically write copy for websites. And I actually wound up getting a meeting, and I got a meeting with DuckDuckGo. I put my resume in to be like their vice president of international marketing. And the guy said to me, he was like, how are you in this meeting? And I was like, I'm a persuasive guy. I think you're vastly underqualified. But yeah, so anyway, so those were what people would call failures, those ventures, but they weren't. They were teaching me how to do business. I was getting in the mindset, learning what to do, what not to do. And then when I wrote Cubs to Bears books, as soon as I sold one copy of Good Bears Always Tell the Truth, I was like, man, I'm in it now. Yeah. So
were you still working though at your 9 to 5 at this time? Like when you were selling books?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So yeah, paint a picture for me about what that looked like, when the light bulb went off. Like, it sounds like you're having lots of light bulb moments, but when you realized that this was the path and when you decided to put in your notice, like what did that look like?
Well, I've always been hardworking, and I learned that from my dad. And I teach young people this, and I tell everyone this, that no matter what you do in life, you got to be the best at it. So if I'm a janitor, I am the hardest working janitor you've ever seen. No one will shine the floor like me. And hey, Brady and Wesley, get out. Love you guys. How are you? Go to bed.
That's what's up. That's what it's all about.
That's the homeschool dad life.
That's it, man. I love it.
And that's the golden retriever life as well. It's a puppy. And boy, oh boy, did I not know about golden retriever puppies. They are an absolute handful, but do love them. Love them.
That's awesome.
But, and my son's taking advantage here. He knows he's supposed to be in bed. But he's like, Dad's in the podcast. I'm going to come stand behind him. So where was I in that story exactly? Sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, you're good. You're good, man. And you were just talking about, like, if you're going to be the best, or you got to be the best. If you're the best janitor, then no one's going to shine the floor like me. And we were just talking about, your shift from transitioning out of your job. Like, you started to get some wins by putting your own offer out in the market. And I was just kind of curious what that looked like, those final days, what your transition looked like what the process looked like of you giving notice, and when you really just made that leap for yourself. Like, when did you make the decision to do that, and what did your final couple weeks look like at your job as you were embarking on this new journey?
Yeah, so I like I said, if I'm going to be a janitor, I'm going to be the hardest working janitor in the world, and I kind of approached everything like that. So when I started doing entrepreneurship, I had my hour rule, but once I got into it, I was really putting in a lot of hours at night. So I'd work during the day, I'd take a little break, and then I would put in hours at night. Instead of watching television like most people do, I would just work at my venture. And I worked really hard at it. And I had after I got onto TikTok, I had about a 4 or 5 month run where I didn't do anything crazy. I made July to December, July to December 31st of that year, I secured
20,000. Was this 2019 or 2020 or what was it?
2021. 2021.
Okay. Yeah.
I made $20,000 in book sales.
Nice.
So, little less than half a year, $20,000. Yeah. Nothing crazy, but the proof of concept was there and it was doing well enough. I was doing it part-time, and my wife actually looked at me and she was like, Brett, you're doing really well with this now. I was like, yeah, it's going pretty well, right? And she's like, yeah, you should just quit your job and go for it full time.
Nice.
And I looked at her and I was like, are you fucking crazy? Quit my job. I was like, but she believed in me and she was like, no, I think you should. You're doing really well with this. She was like, you've been putting in the work and look what it's grown into. And I said, you know what? Maybe you're right. And that week I called the office and I said, I'm going to put in a 2-week notice. And I put in my notice, and January 1st of 2022, I had no job. I was just an entrepreneur. And I just went from there. And I actually, craziest thing. So January 1st, 2022, now I'm the entrepreneur. I make a video January 5th of that year on the peanut trap, which is a allegory of the dangers of socialism. I make a book on the peanut trap. It goes mega viral, more viral than I've ever gone. I had gone super viral. And that one video, I made $10,000 in sales off of.
Wow.
And that was 4 days into being an entrepreneur. I had only made $20,000 between July and December. And I kind of took that as a nod, like a wink from God. There's like, yeah, you made the right move here. You're good.
That's amazing. And then it feels like, it almost sounds like the way you were characterizing that, the idea of like, are you crazy? Quit my job. Like you were doing all this work. Like obviously there was something on like a spiritual level pulling you forward. Like you had this momentum that was pulling you forward, but you still hadn't wrapped your mind around the idea of like, this is entrepreneurship. This is me. This is the new person that I'm becoming. Like, of course it was there, but still that lingering paycheck mentality of like, are you crazy? Quit my job. That's nuts. That's so fascinating to hear. But then having that validation immediately right out the gate. I've had a lot of little winks like that myself, maybe not going super viral, but things that are enough to me, that are evidence enough to me to be like, okay, you're on the right path. Just keep going. But that's so fascinating to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it goes. And, those are scary leaps. And I, like everyone else, I came up through, this is how you do things. And, the idea of quitting my job, it was just, that's what I do. I do my job. I work hard as I can, and I provide for my family. And there's this psychological thing in people's mind that's like, oh, the job is the safety net. But it's not even true. Like a job isn't a safety net. You could get fired from that job tomorrow.
That's exactly what I've been saying. It's like people say, yeah, there's a lot of risk in entrepreneurship, right? That's high risk, high reward. But honestly, in this day and age too, right now with the AI replacing everybody's I would say the more risky thing is not building skills and not figuring out what your offer is going to be to the market. The biggest risk is staying in a job and relying solely on the whim of your employer of their generosity of if they're going to give you another paycheck or not. That's the high risk thing, especially in this day and age. 100%.
Yeah, so it's an interesting psychological makeup that is really ingrained in all of us. And as soon as you see that, you could start to get over it. But like I said from the beginning, you don't look at that mountain, I want to jump up that mountain. You just start doing something on the side. And then that gives you real security, right? Talk about job security or money security. Well, now you have your 9-to-5 and you've been building your side hustle. And then if something does happen to your 9-to-5, like your boss calls you in and says, we've replaced you with Claude the AI robot, then you don't fall as hard because you say, okay, well, good thing I've been building my thing on the side, and now this is just my sign that I need to jump into it full time. But if you're not building anything on the side, then you lose that job. Well, yeah, now you feel like you hit the ground hard. But it's no different than if you have a business and the business fails, you hit the ground hard. Either one could fail, but one of them offers you more flexibility, more freedom, and ultimately a lot more of an ability to earn big income. I mean, there's some jobs, like you can be like the CEO of the NFL, right? That's a high paying job. But for most jobs, being an entrepreneur offers you more income potential.
Yep.
So everything is there, and it's just a matter of taking the leap and doing it in a safe way that you're comfortable with. And the thing is, once you start to do more and more of it, the psychology starts to change. Like now it's a joke. You could drop me anywhere in the world. I'm not going to, I need to get a job. I'd probably just get a lawnmower, like I said, and knock on my neighbor's door and start from there.
Yep. That's what we talk about a lot on here. It's like just a few weeks ago, I was doing a handyman job, even though I'm trying to more pivot away from that into my new little marketing agency thing that I got going on. But it's less about, but I still have some customers that call me from time to time. And I was literally just like, I was hanging some curtains in a fancy restaurant that's about to open, some folks that I'd done work for in some of their other establishments. And I'm sitting there, I've got like a drill, a laser level, and, a pencil and a tape measure. And I'm like, it just like I've had, it's like this right here. You could start this business for like less than $200. Like literally you could start a whole like curtain hanging, TV hanging, whatever business, dude. Like there's just like it's just unbelievable how once you get out of the mentality of just like, oh yeah, like you said, I need $100,000 to start a business or whatever. You just realize like you have everything you need right now to start a business, probably, and it's just, that mindset aspect is just the crippling thing that keeps people stuck. And like I said, yeah, hey, it's if that's what you want to do, if you want to work the DMV for the next 25 years, get a pension, retire, great. There's people that are perfectly suited for that. We need those people in the world. This show isn't for those people, right? You know what I mean? And I'm speaking directly to the people that are just like hungry for that thing, hungry for the piece of the pie that's out there, that's right there. And the mindset piece is the biggest barrier. I think that's what I found with myself. And to this day, it's still something that I feel like I have to spend a lot of time really focusing on. That's why I do listen to some of the Hormozy type guys, and I'll check into Richard Grove's autonomy course because I need that pep talk, that refresher like every few months, And it's just the idea that so much of this is all right here. So much of the thing that's holding us back or keeping us stuck is all up here. So I was really fascinated to hear some of your early, I say failures because I've had tons of failures that then give us more information that we can iterate and advance past and learn and grow from. So
success,
exactly. Like failure is, or success is somebody who failed, but then just tried one more time, right? Didn't give up, and just fill in the blank of any of the little, whatever sayings here. Right. But it's like, so what were some of the early, is there a particular lesson that you learned early on that stands out to you, whether it's the result of a failure or maybe the result of a success? Like, is there something like mindset related that stands out to you that was kind of early on in your journey that was like a huge game changing aha type of moment that you can think of?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about a moment, but I guess I always had a little bit in me that I believe in myself. So, and you have to have that because especially when you start doing things that differentiate from what the majority of people do, you'll get those looks and people will discourage you. They'll roll their eyes. And a lot of people will let that get them down. But for me, that stuff just motivates me. And I was like, all right, well, if you're going to down me, I guess we'll see about that. But yeah, I mean, just the little things. Like I said, I mean, people say it's funny, right? Like you bought 200 shirts and you sold one shirt. What a failure. But to me, I was like, oh, I sold a shirt.
Yes.
And I didn't really, obviously the money hurt, but I didn't harp on that. I was like, okay, well, if I could sell one shirt, I could sell 10 million shirts.
Yep.
right? Because Nike does it, so it could be done.
Yep.
And you just have to have the right mindset. And then the funny thing is, like, you see it now because you're an entrepreneur, but once you become an entrepreneur and you really start to have success, it's a whole mindset shift where it's just so much more obvious. And then with everything you do, you approach it with that, where it's like you said, it's just iterations. Okay, so I tried something and this didn't quite work out, so we're just going to make some adjustments, and it will work out, because it's just the nature. You look everywhere around you, there's successful businesses, and these aren't because people, you go to these gurus and they're like, yeah, get your first $10 million. Like, okay, I mean, sure. And you could build a business up that's worth $10 million, and God bless you, I hope you do. But people don't just start that. Maybe some people just start that way. They say, I'm going to start a business today, and they have $10 million tomorrow. But for most people, it's like anything. You're getting better at it. You're doing trial and error. You're learning as you do. You're learning new skills as you do it. And if you're consistent and you keep putting in the work and you're working to build this thing, to nurture this baby, well, then the baby will start to grow, right? Or seed that plant. The plant will start to grow at a normal, healthy pace. And the crazy thing is, the guru guys love to put out $10 million. Get you, make $20 million like me. You don't need nearly that type of money to actually achieve freedom in life.
Totally. 100%. And there's a lot of, I see it on Instagram or whatever all the time. There is a toxic culture around, like, I make $5,000 a day with a PDF. And it's like, huh? Hold on. You know what I mean? It's like an attractive offer. And it's like, oh, there's a lot more to that. It's like, so there is a lot of garbage and junk and noise out there. So you got to be discerning when it comes to, like, what content you aggregate and take in when it comes to that sort of stuff. But but there is to say, like, there is a path. There's absolutely a path. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I'm curious, is there something that comes to mind if I were to ask you, what's like a huge obstacle that you ran into, a constraint, some sort of problem that you faced that you were able to overcome and grow out of?
Well, listen, when you start doing entrepreneurship, you come across all of these different types of problems. And you come across problems with software that you're using. You come across issues where all of a sudden now you're making money and you realize you have to pay sales taxes in all these different places. You are going into agreements and all of a sudden you need lawyers. Trademark attorneys, all different types of stuff, right? And you run across these problems or tech issues and customer service, right? You come across all these things, and I didn't have the training to do any of them. So like everything, you just learn as you do them. And if you keep a good mindset, it's just like learning anything else. It's fine. And the good thing about being the entrepreneur is you're your own boss. So if you make a mistake, you might lose a few dollars, but in the end, you're not going to fire yourself. So you make an adjustment, and within 3 months, you made the money back and you learned a lesson, and you're doing great. So
that's it, man. That's it. Just lessons learned, folks. We're not failure. We're not looking at it as failure. These are just lessons and success. They lead to your success. So, well, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about Classical Learner. Tell the people, like, if they have, like, of course, like, hopefully the people in the audience are also of the mindset of trying to cultivate the next generation of entrepreneurs and people that are awake to how the world really works. So tell us more about Classical Learner, what people can expect there, what your offer is, and how people can join up.
Yeah, so you can find us at www.classicallearner.com. I'll probably say that 2 more times because my entrepreneurial research tells me you have to say it 3 times or people don't remember. So classicallearner.com, classicallearner.com. But we offer live educational classes 5 days a week for elementary school, middle school, and high school. We run them live over Zoom. We have history classes, and for anyone that follows my stuff and knows my social media, we do some really hardcore, hard-hitting, not politically correct, just real history. I currently have Dr. Narco Longo, Old World, Florida. If you guys don't follow him,
he's great.
Phenomenal historian. He's teaching a class for us on the Age of Discovery.
That's
this year.
amazing, dude. Okay, that's the only school you'll ever find Dr. Narco Longo teaching at. I guarantee you that. That's hilarious.
Well, he's real, just not politically correct, just, real hard history. I mean, he goes at everyone, but, it's amazing. People know him for that. But when he's in the class interacting with the students, he has a great way to go about it. And he talks about very sensitive and controversial topics where he gives straight, hard truth, but he does it in a way with compassion. And the families respect him no matter what background they come from. So it's really cool to see how he navigates that, because he touches on race and religion and all that stuff. Obviously myself, I do the same thing. But we run book clubs. Our students this semester, our older students, we've read Animal Farm, Fahrenheit 451, The Giver, The Hatchet. So we read those books, we meet every week and we talk about them. We run Latin classes weekly, we run science classes, art classes, physical education classes. I teach a Friday class myself. We do boot camp style workouts, which I love. So we do that, and then we have the summer session coming up in June, which I'm really excited about, and we'll have a new iteration of live classes. We have that. We have tons of pre-recorded courses by myself and others on the U.S. Constitution, civics, entrepreneurship, intro to marketing, all these different topics. We have printable lesson plans. We have printable unit studies. You get all of that. It's just for a monthly subscription. So at the current moment, it's $30 a month, and that is going up. But if you get in, we're grandfathered. You're grandfathered in. So at this time next year, with the stuff we're rolling out, we're probably going to be at like $75 a month. But anyone who joins now, I actually have people that joined years ago, many people, and they're still in at $5 a month. They were my first customers. They're still with me, and they'll always be that. I never raise the price on my existing customers, loyalty. And so, yeah, but it's real simple. Anyone wants to try it out, jump in, and we're changing lives. I'll tell you that. And if people saw what we're doing with these kids, it's really amazing. And I wake up every morning with such incredible purpose in my life. And my father always told me, he's like, you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And he was right, because I love what I do. And like I said, I'm going to do it to the day I die. So
that's amazing. Well, I think I asked you this last time we talked, but some of these like entrepreneur marketing stuff like that. It's like, can adults take these classes? Like, what the heck? Like, I want to like learn all that stuff too.
Yeah, I do have adults sign up to take the classes. The only thing they're not allowed to do is live classes are only for the kids.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious if you had like a separate class for the adults or something like that, or they could watch the replay or something like that. Like, I don't know.
But yeah, the courses, absolutely. And we have adults sign up and take them. And listen, I think my courses, my pre-recorded ones on entrepreneurship, on marketing, are really good. So I strongly recommend them.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, and of course, you guys give him a follow. Just look up Classical Learner on the TikToks and the Instagrams. It's worth it. He's got a big account, and they're hilarious, insightful, informative, and if you want to learn something, if you want to go get learned up, if you want to go get fact up, go follow Brett on all the social medias. So, all right, man. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, man. I really, really appreciate it. And if you guys want to learn a little bit more about exiting the 9-to-5 into entrepreneurship, come join the school community. You'll see the link below. But please, I'll have links for all of Brett's stuff in the episode as well. If you're family curious about homeschooling, I cannot recommend a program better than Brett. So please go give him a follow on all the socials and go support his work. And thanks so much, man. And I will talk to you very soon. I'll see the rest of you on the next one. Peace.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you, man.